Heartwarming discovery. Billionaire encounters bruised girl in snow. Her touching whisper inspires. Jack Thompson adjusted his collar as he stepped out of his black luxury SUV and into the biting chill of Pine Grove. The tiny town was cloaked in white, decorated with twinkling lights that flickered like stars against a backdrop of heavy snowflakes swirling down from the slate-gray sky. He was there for a charity event. A world away from the skyscrapers and boardrooms he ruled with an iron fist. But here, the air felt different, charged with a nostalgic pulse he couldn't quite grasp. As he walked through the bustling holiday market, the warmth of laughter and the scent of sweet, baked pies filled his senses. Children bundled in colorful jackets dashed past him, their cheeks rosy from the cold, giggling as they tossed snowballs. But Jack felt more like an outsider than a participant. He was a billionaire in a world of everyday struggles, and the glares from the locals were more piercing than the winter wind. He kicked at a snowdrift inside, catching sight of a lonely figure tucked away on a cold bench, a small girl with tear-streaked cheeks and a hood that swallowed her face. His heart twisted. A lonesome shiver rippled through him, urging him forward. As he neared her, Lily's eyes, wide with a mix of fear and yearning, locked onto his. He could sense her pain as if it were his own. They exchanged glances, a billion emotions racing through the space between them. She mustered the courage to whisper, "I wish I could be an artist, but it feels too far away." Those words struck him harder than any boardroom deal ever had. He crouched next to her, his tailored suit stark against the white bench. "Tell me more," he urged, bridging the distance that had separated them. She spoke of her father losing his job and the weight of bullies laughing as she tried to express herself through her art. Each trembling word was like a window into her shattered confidence. And Jack felt something awaken inside him, an empathy he had long buried beneath layers of wealth and status. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Jack took a breath to steady his air. He offered to help her directly, promising financial aid for her mother and a scholarship for her art classes. But what he had envisioned as a beacon of hope turned into a flurry of whispers and judgments. The town that once brimmed with holiday cheer now buzzed with resentment, branding him a charity case, while Lily, caught in the crossfire, felt guilty for needing help. With his heart heavy, Jack knew he had to confront the community that had resisted his kindness. At an assembly meeting, he stood before them, unguarded and raw. He shared his loneliness, his own regrets that echoed in the silence of his opulent home. The tight faces began to soften as a deep understanding washed over the room. There they stood, Jack, dangerously vulnerable, and Lily, a wounded spirit. Together, they revealed that beneath wealth and wounds, they were traded by the same hardships, both longing for connection. But beneath the rush of emotions, lingering doubts brewed. Would the town embrace them as allies or judge them as pariahs? As tension crackled in the air, Jack and Lily waited, hearts pounding, on the threshold of change. Would compassion spark a new beginning, or remain buried beneath layers of judgment? The hall fell silent, the weight of their shared vulnerabilities hanging thick in the air. Jack's chest tightened as he scanned the sea of wary faces. He could almost feel the townsfolk's skepticism weaving a barrier around them, one he desperately wanted to break through. A woman in the back, her arms crossed tightly over her chest, finally spoke up. "You don't know what it's like around here, do you?" Her voice was low and steady, yet full of an underlying fire. "Money doesn't buy kindness or trust, Mr. Thompson." He stepped forward, feeling a wave of determination. "You're right. I don't know, but I want to. I haven't lived your struggles, but I faced my own demons. I felt utterly alone, drowning in my own success. I thought the wealth I amassed would fill the void, but it hasn't. It never could." He took another breath, shooting a glance at Lily, whose wide eyes brimmed with hope and fear in equal measure. This girl has a gift that could change her world. And I can help her, but only if you'll help me build a bridge between us instead of a wall. Why can't we work together? Another voice rang out, softer but more poignant. What do we get in return? It sounds too good to be true. A young man stood, his brow furrowed, mirroring the doubts shared by many. Jack felt the familiar tug of frustration, but he pressed on. I don't expect anything in return except a chance. Give me a chance to show you my intentions. Let us start a program for kids like Lily, where they can explore their creativity and find support. If I can help even one child, it's worth it. In the depths of his heart, he felt a spark flicker, a sliver of hope that maybe, just maybe, this could foster change. His eyes searched the crowd, trying to connect with someone, anyone who might share his vision. Lily shuffled closer to him, grabbing onto the hem of his coat. Her small voice broke through the murmurs. I just want to draw. And in that moment, something shifted. A woman stepped forward, her expression softening. You have a talent, don't you, Lily? Show us your art if you have the chance. Lily blinked in surprise, pain fading to incredulity. She nodded shyly. I will. The tension began to dissipate, replaced by tentative curiosity. Jack focused on that glimmer of interest, feeling warmth spreading across the room. What began as whispers of fear transformed into people leaning in, wanting to listen. But as they prepared to explore the next steps, a dark cloud passed over the townsfolk. A man from the rear, the town's mayor, with a face as hard as stone, chimed in, and if this fails, what then? Can we trust you, Thompson? Jack felt the walls closing in again. Years of assuming he was infallible in business shadowed his mind. I'll take full responsibility. If it fails, blame me. But let us at least try. Let us let our children dream. As silence engulfed the crowd again, Lily squeezed his hand tightly, and Jack felt himself trembling. What had they decided? Would fear continue to drown their hopes? Just as the mayor opened his mouth to respond, a firecracker went off somewhere in the distance, startling everyone. The unexpected explosion shattered the tentative atmosphere, and they all turned instinctively toward the sound. Was it a celebration of hope or the finality of doubt? Jack took a deep breath, leaning closer to Lily, their fates closely entangled, both waiting for a decision that could redefine their lives. Would they ignite a flame of possibility, or watch it fade into the cold winter night? Moments felt like hours as the crack of the firecracker echoed around them. The air was thick with uncertainty, the tension palpable. Jack's heart raced as he scanned the crowd, watching the faces that flickered between disbelief and intrigue. He felt the weight of each gaze, each unspoken question. Please, he said softly, his voice barely above a whisper. Let us not let fear keep us apart. The crowd shifted, eyes darting between one another. It was a fragile moment, where hope hovered just above despair. Lily looked up at Jack, her small fingers entwined with his, offering him silent strength. Maybe we can try, came a voice from the middle of the room. It was an older man, his brow creased with a lifetime of worry. But what are you really offering us, Mr. Thompson? Will you just up and leave when things get tough? Jack stepped closer, unconsciously adopting a more sincere stance. I understand your doubt. Trust isn't given lightly, especially around here. But I promise this is more than business for me. This is personal. For once, I want to build rather than take. Lily shifted beside him, her small frame radiating determination. Everyone has dreams, she said, her voice stronger now. I just want to create. A deep silence filled the hall as her words settled in. The world narrowed to Lily's unyielding spirit fighting against the odds. Jack felt his own resolve swell in response. If Lily could speak up, then surely he could stand by her side. One by one, the townsfolk exchanged glances, searching each other's faces for the remnants of spirit lost to time. Finally, a woman in the front row, her hair streaked with gray, spoke up again. What do you need from us? I need your voices, Jack replied, an edge of urgency creeping in. We can't do this alone. We need your guidance to make this a place where children like Lily can thrive. Support groups, workshops, art showcases. This is about all of us coming together. But what happens after we give you our trust? The woman pressed, her skepticism unwavering. Then we build something real, Jack said, fervently. Not just for one child, but for a whole generation. We've all seen what happens when we don't nurture our future. I want this place to flourish, to be vibrant again. Jackson felt the flame of hope growing stronger, transforming hesitance into action. Around him, people began to nod slowly, considering the possibilities. But then, the mayor's voice cut through like a frozen blade. I won't risk our town's future on your dreams, Thompson. Convince me. Prove you're worth our trust. Jack's mind raced. How could he possibly show the depth of his intentions? Before he could respond, a child's voice rang out from the back, timid but unwavering. Can we draw together? Like in a club? A ripple of surprise washed over the crowd, the simplicity of her plea piercing through the heaviness. Jack turned to Lily, who beamed like a lighthouse, the hope shining brightly in her eyes. Yes, he encouraged. Imagine it, a whole room filled with children sharing their art, feeling seen. Could be magic. The mayor leaned back, arms crossed, but there was a glimmer of something curiosity. Maybe? Lily's small voice filled the space again. Art makes people happy, doesn't it? Jack smiled down at her, his heart swelling with pride. It does, Lily. And it can bring us together, regardless of our differences. As murmurs began to spread through the audience, Jack held his breath. This could be the moment that pivoted everything. Would they embrace this chance? Or would the grip of skepticism tether them back into the shadows? Just then, the sound of laughter from outside broke through the solemnity, pulling Jack's attention. A group of children was playing in the snow, joyfully tossing snowballs, oblivious to the worries of the adults inside. Jack felt a tap on his shoulder. It was Lily, eyes shimmering with passion. Can we really do it, Mr. Thompson? Can we make a club where we create? Jack looked into her earnest face and nodded, fueled by her genuine hope and the sense of urgency blooming in his chest. Yes, Lily, I promise you we will build that club. But in the depths of his heart, uncertainty lingered. What if he wasn't enough? And then, from the back of the hall, the mayor's voice rose again, breaking the spell. All right then, Mr. Thompson. You've got my attention. Show me you're worthy. Jack took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment pressing down. How would he prove himself? With renewed determination, he squared his shoulders, ready to meet the challenge head-on. What revelation awaited as they ventured further into this uncertain alliance? Jack could feel the heat radiating from his promise. A fragile thing, but one built on hope and the dreams of so many. The mayor's gaze was heavy, scrutinizing every fiber of his being. This was a pivotal moment, and he refused to let it slip. Let us start with something simple, Jack said, a spark of inspiration lighting up in his chest. A sketching session. Just an hour, every Saturday. Kids bring their favorite materials, let us say 10 or 15 at first. We make it a safe place to create and share. No judgments, just art. The crowd murmured, considering the idea. Some parents exchanged looks, their skepticism battling with the yearning for change. Jack felt Lily squeeze his hand as if she sensed the shift, encouraging him to keep pushing. Imagine if we could fill that community center with color again. Jack continued, gesturing toward the gray walls surrounding them. Let us paint murals that tell our stories, leaving artifacts of joy instead of just memories of struggle. The gray-haired woman from before leaned forward, curiosity etched on her face. And what if no one shows up? What if it becomes just another empty promise? Jack swallowed hard, but he didn't falter. Then we reach out again. We invite local artists to share their skills. Show everyone that art isn't just for the few, it's for everyone. We can even host open mic nights or poetry slams. We'll let our creativity breathe again. Lily's eyes twinkled. We could have a big art show in the park. Absolutely, Jack replied, feeling the thrill of possibility coursing through him. Let us feature everything from paintings to sculptures to performances. If we bring the joy of creation to these kids, They might inspire their parents to contribute too. Suddenly, a voice shouted from the back, a teenager, who had been silently observing. What if we mess up? What if everyone thinks we're terrible? Jack remembered his own fears, the times he nearly silenced his own ambitions over doubt. What if you do mess up? He challenged gently. Mistakes are part of creating. There's beauty in the process, not just in the end result. Trust me, art has a way of connecting even when the lines go outside the page. Nods began to ripple through the audience again. The earlier tension began to wane, replaced by a tentative curiosity. They didn't have to dive into the deep end right away. They could wade through the shallows at their own pace. Okay, Mr. Thompson, the mayor finally said, his voice stronger now. Let us assume you can pull this off. But what happens when winter ends? What then? Will it still be enough? Jack drew in a breath, the weight of a potential future spiraling around him. I don't have all the answers yet, but I know we'll figure it out together. This is just the beginning. Art can lead to connections that plant roots in this town. It can create a community instead of just a cluster of houses. A door opens when we embrace creativity. As if emboldened by Jack's words, he saw a hand raise in the front row, an earnest young woman, no older than 20. I love your idea, she said, her voice strong. I'm studying art at college. I'd be willing to volunteer. Hope surged through him. Change was brewing. It was a flicker of light gaining strength against uncertainty. Not just volunteers, Jack countered, excitement bubbling. Let us make it a movement. If we encourage everyone to contribute, we can create a new culture. They began to envision what could arise. Ideas bounced back and forth. Laughter began to trickle in. And for the first time, it felt like a community was forming around a shared dream. Jack felt his heart race, not from fear but exhilaration. He was starting to glimpse what they could become together. But amidst the growing excitement, a shadow lurked at the edge of his mind. As they imagined their artistic utopia, he couldn't shake the feeling that there were voices still silenced. He felt an urgency to reach them all. What about the people still too hurt or frightened to step forward? Whose stories remained untold? Just as he pondered this, a loud crash came from outside, snapping his thoughts back into focus. Did you hear that? Lily exclaimed, her eyes wide with concern. Jack turned toward the sound. Let us check it out. As they moved toward the door, one question remained heavy in the air. What awaited them beyond? The door swung open, and a rush of cold air flooded into the room. Jack stepped out first, heart racing with anticipation. He scanned the street, the gray skies shifting to a darker hue as the sun began to dip behind the buildings. A few bystanders had gathered around a fallen trash can, its metal lid dented and litter spewing onto the sidewalk like scattered confetti. Jack's focus zeroed in on two kids who were trying to right the can. One boy, no older than 10, looked up at Jack with wide eyes. We're sorry. We didn't mean to. His voice wobbled with a mix of guilt and fear. The older of the two, a girl with a tangle of thick, curly hair, clutched a small notebook to her chest. The corners of her eyes crinkled as she added, "It just slipped out of our hands." Jack softened. "Let us fix this together, huh?" He knelt down next to them and gestured for Lily to join as she stood close behind him. Her presence was solid, a reassuring anchor at his side. "We were drawing," the girl said, her timid voice cutting through the chill. "But we wanted to try and do it on the sidewalk. We wanted to make it bright again." Her voice trailed off, and Jack could see the fear in her eyes, the fear of judgment he had just spoken about. Jack exchanged a glance with Lily. He knew what they needed. Let us turn this little mess into something amazing. What do you both say? A collaborative mural right here? He pointed to the pavement. We could use chalk, and if it rains, it'll wash away. But for now, let us create. The kids looked at each other, uncertainty crossing their faces. But what if it doesn't look good? The boy asked, biting his lip. Remember what I said in there? Jack asked, smiling warmly. Mistakes can lead to something beautiful. Art lets us express ourselves, no matter how it looks. Trust me, this could be the start of something incredible. Lily knelt beside the girl, her eyes sparkling with encouragement. I'm sure a few sprinkles of color can do wonders. You'll see. Plus, I'll help. We can make flowers and sunshine. As they began to sketch out swirling lines and vibrant shapes, Jack stepped back and took a moment to breathe. The surrounding murmurs of the gathering crowd turned into laughter and excitement. Yet, just as hope flourished, a shadow flickered at the edge of his mind. Again, the girl's hesitant expression lingered. What had she gone through? Why did she seem so uncertain? Hey, Jack said softly to her, once the initial artwork began to take shape. What's your name? Marina, she replied, glancing up. Marina, I can't wait to see what you're going to create next. He didn't let her silence deter him. I have a feeling you've got some amazing stories to tell. How about we paint one of them? Marina opened her mouth to respond but hesitated, glancing at the ground. Jack felt a pang of understanding, yet anticipation filled him. The air buzzed with potential, and not just from the art they were creating, but from the voices that needed nurturing and guiding. From the back of the growing crowd, a familiar voice spoke up, one of uncertainty mixed with curiosity. Can I help too? Jack paused, looking over to see the teenager who had spoken in the community center, standing behind a mother and her child. The kid was grinning, clearly excited, while the mother wore a skeptical frown. Absolutely, Jack replied, gesturing for him to come over. We'd love more hands on deck. As they continued to gather momentum, the chilly air felt warmer. Hope wrapped around them like a shared embrace. Jack dared to dream that this small moment could be the start of greater change. But then, just as the crowd began to dive into creativity, an ominous clamor reverberated from the alleyway nearby, a sound that struck Jack like cold steel. He turned toward the noise, instincts firing. Something stirred within him. Was it a call for help? Wait, what was that? He urged, eyes darting to the shadows. Before he could process his thoughts, the tension in the air thickened, leaving Jack wondering what if this moment was about to challenge everything they had just begun to build. The crowd's laughter faded, replaced by a thick silence that hung heavy in the air. Jack's heart raced, the playful colors of chalk in their hands forgotten. The alleyway wasn't far, but it felt like a chasm now, stretching between the vibrant life they were creating and the shadow of something troubling. Did you hear that? Jack asked, his voice edged with urgency. The kids and others in the gathering looked at him, confusion evident on their faces. Marina's eyes widened, flickering between the mural and the dark alley like a pendulum caught in indecision. Lily leaned closer to Jack. What if it's nothing? We should focus on what we're creating, she said, her tone trying to soothe the tension growing inside him. But something inside Jack clung to the instinct that urged him to investigate. The unsure faces of Marina and the boy stirred his heart, the truth of their situation undulating just beneath the surface. No, we need to check it out, he insisted, nodding toward the alley. Stay here, okay? I'll be right back. With a quick glance back at the mural, the swirls of colors beginning to emerge under their chalky hands, he stepped away, pushing past the gathering crowd, urgency echoing in each step. The chilly air nipped at his skin, but he focused on the sound, moving closer to the shadows obscured at the alley's mouth. As he rounded the corner, the alley opened up, filled with remnants of the city's hustle and bustle. Litter swirled around his feet, and in the half-light, he spotted a figure crumpled against the graffiti-streaked wall. It was a girl, maybe a bit older than Marina, her face buried in her arms. Hey! Jack called out softly, hoping to approach without scaring her. She looked up slowly, revealing tear-streaked cheeks, her eyes wide and haunted. There was a raw vulnerability in her expression, a mix of fear and defiance that tugged at his heart. Are you okay? Jack took a cautious step closer, hands held up as if to show he meant no harm. You don't need to be scared. I'm just here to help. Her gaze locked onto his, uncertainty quaking beneath the surface. Just leave me alone, she whispered defiantly, but the tremor in her voice told a different story. Jack recognized that look, the fight she didn't even want to be fighting. You don't have to do this alone, he said gently. Whatever it is, I can help. He paused, searching for the words. I'm here with some friends. We're making art. It's fun. Would you like to join us? For a moment, her defenses flickered, the storm in her eyes softened by curiosity. Art? She echoed, disbelief lining her voice. Yes, art, he repeated, stepping closer, intrigued by the glimmer of interest he saw in her eyes. You can express whatever you feel. It's safe. You can even draw about what brought you here. We just want to help people feel better. The girl seemed to struggle with his words, her fingers digging into her jeans. Jack could sense the weight of experiences she was carrying, which mirrored Marina's uncertainty. In a world often quick to judge, he wished he could pull her pain into the light, let her see that they wanted her to be part of something beautiful. Why? She asked finally, her voice barely a murmur. Because we're all in this together, he answered, a smile breaking through the tension. And when one of us hurts, we all feel it. But when one of us heals, we all heal. That's how community works. A flicker of hope moved behind her guarded eyes. I don't know. Just come with me, Jack urged, extending his hand to her. It's not just art. It's connection. You might find some peace. You'd be welcome. As the alley's shadows loomed around them, Jack felt the weight of what could be. Yet, even in that moment, a sudden shout erupted from the square. Drawing his attention, the crowd was shifting. What was that now? Jack whispered. He turned his head back, tension electrifying his body once more. He realized something deeper was happening, something he might not be ready for. What was about to test everything he believed now? Please come with me, he urged the girl again, hoping she would step into the light with him. But her hesitation was palpable, and Jack felt the world shift on its axis as he realized that this encounter could change everything for both of them. Would she take his hand, or would fear hold her captive in the dark? The girl stared at Jack's outstretched hand, weighing her options as the noise from the crowd pulsed just beyond the alley. She was caught in the light from the street lamps, and for a moment, Jack saw the flicker of hope in her eyes struggle against a storm of uncertainty. Please, Jack whispered, his voice barely breaking through the clamoring voices outside. You don't need to face anything alone. But still, fear held her captive. Her eyes darted toward the exit of the alley, where shadows danced in a macabre waltz. Jack followed her gaze, sensing the urgency behind her panic. What had led her to this place, curled against a wall? He wanted to know her story, to make her feel safe, but he couldn't push her. She needed to choose. I know this might seem scary, Jack continued gently, but we can make something beautiful together. You can let go of some of the hurt, even for a moment. Just step back into the light. Taking a deep breath, he added, I promise if it doesn't feel right, you can leave. No one will stop you. The girl drew her arms tighter around herself, considering his words. Jack felt a rush of emotions swell inside him: hope, responsibility, the need for connection. The tension in the air thickened, echoing their unspoken fears. Would she break free, or would this become another lost chance? Another moment slipping through their fingers? In the lull, a frustrated shout rang out from the crowd, followed by the sound of feet hurriedly shuffling. Jack's heart sank at the realization that she couldn't keep hiding forever. Come on, he pleaded softly. You matter. What you feel matters. We're doing this for everyone who has felt alone. You could be part of something bigger than just this moment. Her resolve faltered, and in that tiny crack of hesitation, something shifted. Slowly, she reached out. Jack's heart raced as her fingers brushed against his. It was fragile, almost tentative, but it was enough. Okay, she whispered, a tremor in her voice laced with uncertainty. I'll try. Jack's heart soared, but before he could react, another shout tore through the night. Jack, where are you? It was Lily, her concern sharpening the air around them. He quickly turned, instinctively gripping the girl's hand tighter. They're coming, Jack said urgently, sensing the grid of chaos beginning to spread. With a gentle pull, he guided her toward the mouth of the alley, where the brightness of the square seemed to flicker like a beacon. But as they approached, Jack could see the confusion and worry on his friends' faces melting into something deeper, worry shadowed by disbelief. They had all sensed that something wasn't right. Marina caught sight of the girl, her eyes widening in surprise and recognition. The tension in the air thickened to the point of suffocation. Jack held his breath, waiting for laughter, rejection, judgment. Instead, he saw something unexpected in Marina's eyes, an understanding that sparked curiosity. "Who is she?" Marina asked, stepping forward, her voice barely above a whisper. "It's okay," Jack said, trying to ease the fear. "She's with me." But as he uttered those words, fear began to blossom in the girl's eyes once more, darker and deeper than before. The crowd surrounded them like a barricade, and Jack knew he had to protect her, to shield her from whatever shadows loomed. "Just trust me," he said softly, squeezing her hand. Everything felt like it was teetering on the edge, and Jack didn't know what would happen next. Could they conquer judgment together, or was she about to pull away again? The night felt heavy and explosive with possibility. Would they all find acceptance, or would old fears hold them back? As the crowd ebbed and flowed around them, Jack couldn't shake the feeling that something larger was about to unfold. What revelation awaited them just out of reach? Jack felt the ground shift beneath him, as if the world itself held its breath. The girl stiffened at the sudden influx of attention, her gaze flicking from Marina to the rest of the group that had gathered. It was one thing to emerge from the shadows. It was another to be thrust into the spotlight. "Who are they?" she whispered, her voice trembling slightly as she glanced around, her grip on Jack's hand tightening. "They're my friends," Jack assured her, trying to instill confidence with a smile. He could see the doubt lingering in her eyes, and it made his stomach churn. Honesty was vital now. "They want to help. You don't have to be afraid." Lily, stepping forward with concern etched on her face, offered a reassuring smile. "We're just here to support you," she said softly, her voice melodic and calm, breaking through the girl's mounting anxiety. "We've all been through tough times. You're safe with us." Jack watched as the tension in the girl's shoulders eased slightly, yet her eyes still darted towards the shadows beyond the alley. He could feel her pulse pounding through their linked hands, a reminder of the chasm that still separated her from full acceptance. "What's your name?" Marina asked gently, taking a step closer as if to bridge that chasm. "Ellie," the girl responded, her voice barely audible like a whisper of wind. "It's nice to meet you, Ellie," Marina replied, instantly softening the air with her smile. "We're glad you're here." Jack felt a surge of warmth at Marina's words. Maybe this was the moment they could pull Ellie into a circle of understanding and love instead of judgment. "Ellie, is it okay if we all sit together for a bit?" he suggested, glancing at the fountain in the center of the square, which would provide a more private space. Ellie hesitated, glancing behind her, back to the dark alley from where she had emerged. The instinct to retreat was still there, but this time there was also a flicker of something new, a desire for connection. "Okay," she finally muttered, her voice a fragile thread. Jack led the small group toward the fountain, the soft murmur of water providing a soothing backdrop to the tense, electric atmosphere. They settled on the cold stone edge, the chill zipping through Jack's legs, but not as cold as the fear he had felt moments ago. As they sat, Jack remembered why he had come to this night festival in the first place. It had been meant to bring people together, to share warmth and laughter. But right now, he wanted to give Ellie that warmth. He cleared his throat, ready to ask how they could help. "Ellie, can you tell us what brought you here tonight? You don't have to share if you're not ready, but we genuinely want to support you." For a moment, her gaze fell to her feet, the flickering light from the lamp above reflecting off her downcast eyes. The silence stretched between them, and Jack's heart raced with anticipation. Would she let them in? Then, Ellie looked up, determination flickering in her eyes like tiny flames. "I ran away," she finally said, her voice firming. "I didn't think anyone would notice. I thought I could just disappear." Something shifted in the group as they heard her words, a collective breath held in anticipation of her truth. Jack felt his heart clench. "You don't have to disappear, Ellie. You matter." Just then, the wind picked up, causing them all to shiver but also bringing a rush of electricity through the air. The moment felt charged, like everything was about to change. But what Ellie didn't expect next was for the crowd to turn their backs and walk away, leaving them isolated in the chilly atmosphere of vulnerability. What would happen now? Would she finally open up? Or would fear drag her back into the shadows? Jack felt a knot forming in his stomach as the crowd dispersed. The laughter and music faded, leaving only the gentle gurgle of the fountain and the soft whispers of the night breeze. Ellie's eyes were now wide with uncertainty, darting between the remaining faces looking at her with concern. For a moment, he could feel the weight of the world resting on her small shoulders. "Ellie, you're safe here," he urged, his voice steady, though his heart thumped loudly in his chest. "You can trust us." He squeezed her hand gently, a small gesture that he hoped would anchor her to the present. What if they did notice? Ellie's voice was barely above a whisper, but the deep-rooted fear was evident in her tone. "What if I can't just come back?" Lily leaned closer, her expression softening. "Everyone has their reasons for wanting to disappear, but running doesn't solve anything. It only leads to more loneliness." Ellie's brow furrowed as she absorbed that. Her heart flickered with something she had not felt in a long time, a sense of belonging. But doubt still lingered within her, like a dark cloud ready to cover the fleeting warmth. Jack glanced at Marina, who nodded almost imperceptibly, a silent agreement to guide Ellie, to show her a path back. "What you're feeling is normal, Ellie," he continued. "It's okay to feel lost. We just need to talk about it. We can help you find your way." The quiet murmuring of the fountain was a comforting rhythm as Ellie hesitated, battling her inner turmoil. Jack could see tears welling up in her eyes, and his heart ached. He remembered the countless times he had felt trapped, desperate to escape from his own problems. He imagined how hard it must be to be so young, carrying so much alone. "Once I wanted to disappear too," he confessed, swallowing hard. "I thought no one would care. But then I realized there are people who do." He held her gaze, willing her to see the truth in his words. "You matter to us. You always have, even before you stepped out of those shadows." Ellie bit her lower lip as emotions played across her face. A flicker of hope mingled with despair. Jack held his breath, waiting. Would she take the leap? "My mom," Ellie started, her voice trembling slightly. "She doesn't understand. I thought if I ran away," maybe. Jack shook his head gently. "Running away won't make things better for you or her. Ellie, trust me. Sometimes confronting what pains us is the only way to heal." As the words settled in, the air between them buzzed with unspoken truths. Jack could see Ellie's walls beginning to crack. "I don't want to burden anyone," she murmured, the guilt creeping back into her voice. Marina reached out, placing a comforting hand on Ellie's back. "You're not a burden. No one has the right to make you feel that way. Let your voice be heard. We're here for you together." Their quiet strength washed over Ellie, and in that moment, she seemed to take a deep breath for the first time. "You really want to help me?" The hope in her eyes glimmered as she searched their faces, seeking confirmation. Jack nodded, feeling a rush of determination. "Absolutely. Whatever you need, we'll face it together. You don't have to go back into that darkness. This is just the beginning." For a heartbeat, the world around them melted away, leaving only the fragile connection that had begun to form, a bond born out of vulnerability and love. But just as Ellie opened her mouth to respond, a loud shout erupted from the crowd nearby, shattering the moment. "What's happening?" Jack turned, nerves creeping back into his chest. The atmosphere shifted abruptly. Ellie's gaze sharpened, darting towards the sound, fear washing over her face once more. What danger lurked in the shadows they thought she had escaped? Jack's heart raced as he moved closer to Ellie, ready to shield her from whatever storm was coming. No more darkness. They faced enough of that. But what awaited them just beyond the carnival lights? The crowd roared, buzzing with mingled excitement and concern. Jack felt a tide of panic rise in him, the kind he had never experienced in the boardrooms of his life, yet more poignant than any business deal could offer. "Ellie, stay close," he whispered, tightening his grip on her hand. The laughter and cheers had morphed into something more ominous. A knot formed at the pit of his stomach, and an instinct appeared, pushing him forward. He had to protect her. As they stepped away from the comforting glow of the fountain, the crowd's gazes were glued to something, a brawl that had erupted between a couple of teenagers, shoving and shouting with wild abandon. It was the kind of chaos that can surge through a community without warning, scattering joy like ashes on the wind. "Let us get out of here," Lily urged, inching back from the commotion. But Jack hesitated, heart racing faster than logic could catch up. He glanced at Ellie, who stood frozen, her wide eyes glued to the chaos ahead. "Ellie," Jack said slowly, angling his body slightly to shield her from sight. "You don't need to look at that. Let us sit back down." She shook her head, something in her eyes stirring with a fierce desire. "No, I want to help," she breathed, her voice gaining strength. Jack felt a surprise jolt that ignited something in him too. Where had this determination been hidden? He blinked, realization dawning. "You want to help?" he echoed, glancing at Lily and Marina, who were drawn in by her resolve. Bravery like this couldn't go unnoticed. "All right, then let us help," Jack said, fueled by her energy. "But we'll do it together. We can't let fear win." In a burst of motion, they sprinted closer to the escalating conflict, their feet crunching on the snow. As they approached, Jack could see a girl, a mere child, caught in the middle of the scuffle, her skateboard strewn across the ground like a fallen soldier. She was looking terrified, eyes darting between the two boys who had sparked the fight. "Hey!" Jack shouted, his voice cutting through the noise like a knife. "Stop!" All heads turned instantaneously, surprise washing over the fighters. Jack stepped forward, his heart pounding, breathing heavily through the chaos. In this moment, he couldn't help but think of the promise he had made, to build a bridge instead of a wall. "Everything okay here?" he asked, projecting calmness that his heart didn't quite feel. The boys glared at him for a moment before the shock in their expressions softened. "Yeah, just roughhousing," one of them murmured, stepping back and glancing over at the girl. Jack knelt down beside her, noticing how she trembled. "What's your name?" "Jess," she said with a quaver, eyes wide and vulnerable. "Jess, how about we find somewhere safe to keep you away from this?" Jack proposed. Marina leaned towards her, extending a hand in solidarity. "We're here to help. You don't need to be scared." The connection formed quickly, just as it had with Ellie, and now seemed to branch out like a fragile vine reaching toward sunlight. Jack's chest swelled, feeling hope ripple through him as Jess grasped Marina's hand tightly, pulling away from the violence surrounding them. Jack turned to Ellie, who stood poised, ready and resolute. "See?" he pointed out, "you have the strength to change things. Together we can do something meaningful." Ellie took a deep breath, her resolve now ignited. "Let us make sure nobody else feels alone," she said, voice firm. The thought of connection made all their hearts beat in sync. They rallied behind each other, joining their forces to disperse the anxious energy amongst the crowd. Hanging back a few steps, they began to lead Jess away, weaving their way through the growing groups that were beginning to settle down. As they emerged from the chaos, Jack felt a transformation swell within him. They were standing together now, not just as individuals, but as a collective of hope, making a promise to this girl in front of them. At the edge of the marketplace, they paused. Jack turned to the others, eyes bright with conviction. "Let us create a safe space for kids who need it," he exclaimed, energy pulsing through his veins. "Art, culture, making connections. This night needs a chance to reflect what we stand for." The flickering lamppost lights illuminated their faces as Marina nodded vigorously, and Lily grinned wide. Together they began to brainstorm. Art workshops, a community mural festival. These moments could bring everyone together to share. Ellie perked up, hope blossoming in her chest. "We could even do art therapy, to express feelings instead of fighting." Jack's heart swelled. There was a fire ignited, a spirit that had been laid dormant too long that now joined the collective pulse of daring to hope. This was their moment, a crucial turning point bursting with potential. Laughter drifted through the cold air, echoing the earlier joys of the night. It was fading violence replaced by vibrant ideas. Something new was forming, and as they mapped out plans beneath the gray twilight, Change glimmered on the horizon. With a renewed sense of purpose, they stood shoulder to shoulder, staring ahead into the freshly fallen snow. Uncertainty lingered. Yes, but so did promise. And as night fell, there was only one thing left to do: to be the architects of their own futures together. The night shimmered with laughter, joy now flowing freely, carving paths where there had only been fear. Jack took a deep breath, finally feeling the warmth of kindred spirits around him. The world was blossoming anew. Now, if you've loved this emotional journey, this is your moment. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel so you won't miss exclusive stories that inspire transformation. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and keep stories like this coming. Comment below with your thoughts and feelings about this ending. Share this video instantly with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformational journey. Don't wait not even one more second to show your support.